There was a time when television did not follow you from room to room. You went to it. Families knew what night a favorite show was on, theme songs were heard only once a week, and missing an episode meant waiting for another chance. The 1970s gave us famous classics that are still discussed today, but it also gave us enormous hits that have slowly slipped out of the conversation. In the next few minutes, we are going back to 15 of them. Some lasted for years, some launched major stars, some were part of a weekly family ritual, and a few may unlock memories you have not thought about in decades. How many do you remember? Before television medicine became dominated by emergency rooms and high-tech spectacle, millions of viewers knew Dr. Marcus Welby. Robert Young played the thoughtful family physician, while James Brolin appeared as his younger partner, Dr. Stephen Kiley. The series was built around a simple idea. A doctor should understand the person, not only the illness. That warmth made Welby feel less like a television hero and more like the trusted doctor many families wished they had. The show ran through much of the 1970s, yet its enormous cultural presence has faded surprisingly quickly. For viewers who remember it, however, the calm voice, the house calls, and the human stories can still unlock an entire era of television. The streets of San Francisco arrived when location filming could make a weekly crime drama feel unusually alive. Carl Malden played veteran detective Mike Stone, while a young Michael Douglas became familiar to television audiences as his partner, Steve Keller. Their cases moved through hills, neighborhoods, and recognizable landmarks, giving the series a visual identity that studio-bound police shows could not easily match. The appeal was not just crime-solving, it was the relationship between an experienced detective and a younger man still learning the job. Douglas would eventually become a major film star, but for a generation of viewers, this was where they first knew him. Today, the series is rarely mentioned beside newer police franchises, even though its city atmosphere remains instantly evocative. Frank Cannon did not look or behave like the typical television private investigator. Played by William Conrad, he was older, heavier, deliberate, and completely confident in his own methods. Instead of trying to imitate a glamorous action hero, Cannon leaned into intelligence, persistence, and a commanding screen presence. The series mixed investigations with car chases, danger, and expensive-looking location work, but Conrad was always the center of gravity. He gave the character a voice and personality that viewers recognized immediately. For 5 seasons, Cannon was a familiar face on CBS, and the character even returned in later television appearances. Yet younger viewers can easily miss how visible this show once was. Mention the name to someone who watched 1970s television though, and that deep voice may come back immediately. Jim Rockford was not the kind of detective who wanted trouble. He lived in a trailer, worried about getting paid, disliked unnecessary violence, and often survived by talking faster than the people chasing him. James Garner made those qualities a strength. The Rockford Files mixed mystery with dry humor and gave its hero an everyday vulnerability that separated him from tougher television detectives. The famous answering machine openings, the California locations, and Rockford's battered practicality gave the series its own rhythm. It was also highly respected in its day, earning major Emmy recognition. Unlike some shows on this list, Rockford has never vanished completely, but its influence is much larger than the amount of attention it receives today. Rewatch it and the writing still feels remarkably modern. Family was not built around a gimmick. Its strength came from making ordinary emotional problems feel important. The Lawrence family of Pasadena dealt with marriage, adolescence, independence, disappointment, and the slow changes that happen inside a household. Sada Thompson and James Broderick anchored the parents, while Christy McNichol became one of the show's breakout young stars. The series earned strong critical recognition because it treated family conflict with unusual seriousness for network television. It could be warm without pretending that every problem disappeared by the closing credits. In the late 1970s, that made it feel mature and contemporary. Today, despite its awards and once loyal audience, Family has slipped far outside the usual list of classic television titles. For many older viewers, seeing the cast again is an immediate memory trigger. 8 is Enough turned a very large household into weekly comfort television. Inspired by the family life of newspaper columnist Tom Braden, the series followed Tom Bradford and his 8 children through arguments, romances, growing pains, and everyday emergencies. Dick Van Patten gave the show a warm center, while the younger cast created the sense that several lives were unfolding at once. The series also endured real-life change when the death of Diana Hyland affected the story and Betty Buckley later joined as Abby. That mixture of humor and genuine emotion helped the Bradfords feel familiar to viewers. The house was crowded, conversations overlapped, and somebody always seemed to need something. Once a major family series, 8 is Enough now lives mostly in the memories of the generation that watched it first. Barretta belonged to the grittier side of 1970s television crime. Robert Blake played Tony Barretta, an unconventional detective whose streetwise methods and casual appearance set him apart from polished police heroes. Then there was Fred, the white cockatoo that became one of the show's most recognizable details. The combination was strange enough to be memorable. Serious crime stories, urban locations, a tough lead character, and an unexpected bird sharing his apartment. Blake's performance received major recognition, and the show became part of the decade's crowded landscape of police dramas. But unlike Columbo or Kojak, Barretta is discussed far less often today. Its visual style, clothing, and atmosphere now feel unmistakably tied to the mid-1970s, which is exactly why seeing these images can be such a powerful burst of nostalgia. Few television openings are as closely tied to the 1970s as The $6 Million Man. Lee Majors played former astronaut Steve Austin, rebuilt with bionic technology after a devastating crash and sent on missions for the government. The concept sounded futuristic, but the series made it wonderfully simple. Slow motion running, electronic sound effects, and Steve's enhanced eye turned ordinary action scenes into something children could imitate in the backyard. The show grew from television movies into a regular ABC series and became a genuine pop culture phenomenon, eventually helping launch The Bionic Woman as a spin-off. Today, the phrase $6 million sounds almost quaint for a superhuman reconstruction, but that is part of the charm. For viewers who were there, the bionic sound effect alone can bring the decade rushing back. One Day at a Time brought a family structure to primetime comedy that felt strikingly contemporary. Bonnie Franklin played Anne Romano, a divorced mother raising daughters Julie and Barbara while rebuilding her own independent life. Mackenzie Phillips and Valerie Bertinelli gave the family its youthful energy, while Pat Harrington Jr.'s Schneider became the unforgettable neighbor who was always appearing at the door. Produced in the Norman Lear tradition, the series could move from jokes to serious subjects without pretending that family life was simple. That balance helped it last 9 seasons. A later reimagining introduced the title to a new generation, but the original series has a very specific 1970s texture. Apartment living, changing social expectations, and conversations that reflected a country redefining what a television family could look like. Welcome back. Cotter took a teacher back to the Brooklyn school he once attended and surrounded him with the unruly remedial students known as the Sweat Hogs. Gabe Kaplan's Mr. Cotter understood them because he had once been one of them. The classroom became a stage for catchphrases, jokes, and the kind of ensemble chemistry that makes a sitcom feel like a club viewers are invited to join. Among the students was a young John Travolta as Vinnie Barbarino, years before his film career made him an international star. The show's theme song, hairstyles, and slang are pure mid-1970s. It was once a major part of popular culture, yet its references have faded with time. Watch a few minutes today, and the period returns almost instantly. Denim, afros, chalkboards, and all. Chips transformed California Freeway Patrol into bright, friendly action television. Eric Estrada played Frank Ponch Poncherello, and Larry Wilcox played John Baker, motorcycle officers whose partnership carried the series through crashes, rescues, pursuits, and plenty of lighter moments. The show was deliberately less grim than many police dramas, which made it easy family viewing. Sunshine, motorcycles, and the distinctive California Highway Patrol uniforms gave every episode a recognizable visual identity. For children of the era, the bikes were often as important as the stories. Estrada became one of television's most recognizable faces, and the pair's publicity photos seemed to be everywhere. Chips continued into the early 1980s, but its heart belongs to the late 1970s, an era when a freeway, 2 motorcycles, and a smile could carry an entire hour of television. The Love Boat offered viewers a weekly vacation without leaving the living room. Gavin MacLeod's Captain Stubing led the familiar crew of the Pacific Princess, while a constantly changing parade of guest stars arrived with romances, misunderstandings, and second chances. The formula was simple, cheerful, and perfectly suited to relaxed weekend viewing. It also created an unusual television time capsule because actors from across decades appeared aboard the ship. The Love Boat became closely linked with Fantasy Island in ABC's Saturday night lineup, giving audiences a double dose of escapism. The series continued well into the 1980s, but its original identity is inseparable from the late 1970s. Today, cruise television looks completely different, yet a glimpse of that cast lined up on deck can still make viewers remember exactly where they used to watch it. Fantasy Island began with an irresistible promise. What if you could travel somewhere and live out the fantasy you had always wanted? Ricardo Montalban's elegant Mr. Rourke welcomed guests to the mysterious island, while Hervé Villechaise's Tattoo announced new arrivals with one of the era's most famous television exclamations. But the fantasies rarely unfolded exactly as expected. Wishes exposed regrets, fears, and hidden motives, giving the series a darker edge beneath its tropical scenery. Paired with The Love Boat on Saturday nights, it became part of a weekly ritual for many families. The white suits, the bell tower, and the arriving plane created an opening viewers instantly recognized. Revivals have kept the title alive, but nothing quite recreates the strange, dreamlike atmosphere of the original. Room 222 technically began in 1969, but much of its life, and its influence, belongs to the early 1970s. Set at the fictional Walt Whitman High School in Los Angeles, the series centered on teacher Pete Dixon, played by Lloyd Haynes, alongside Denise Nicholas, Michael Constantine, and Karen Valentine. What made the program unusual was its willingness to bring contemporary social questions into a half-hour school drama while maintaining an optimistic, humane tone. The Television Academy's historical account describes it as an important precursor to the more socially aware comedies and dramas that followed. Yet, despite that influence, Room 222 is seldom seen or discussed today. For viewers who remember it, the classrooms and cast can feel like opening an old yearbook from television's past. Alice took a working mother's fresh start and turned it into one of television's most familiar workplaces. Linda Lavin played Alice Hyatt, a widowed mother whose journey toward a singing career stalled in Phoenix, where she took a job at Mel's Diner. There she worked beside the sharp-tongued Flo, played by Polly Holliday, and the wonderfully nervous Vera, played by Beth Howland, while Vic Tayback ruled the kitchen as Mel. The diner setting made the characters feel like co-workers viewers actually knew. Catchphrases became famous, but the show's lasting appeal came from friendship, resilience, and everyday working life. Alice remained on CBS for 9 seasons, yet it rarely receives the same nostalgia attention as other long-running sitcoms. One look at those pink uniforms, though, and memories return quickly. Television changes, but memory has a strange way of preserving small details. A theme song, a familiar diner, a motorcycle uniform, a doctor's calm voice, or the sound of a bionic man running in slow motion. These 15 programs were once part of ordinary weekly life for millions of viewers. Which one brought back the strongest memory for you? And which forgotten 1970s show should be in our next episode? Tell us in the comments and subscribe for more journeys back to the television, stars and stories an entire generation remembers.